Hey writers, welcome back. So, yesterday we began drafting our beginning. That was the hook where you were trying to get your readers really interested into your writing. Today we are going to focus on drafting the middle. The middle is the biggest chunk in your writing. So, let's get started. We are going to watch a video that's going to give us a little bit more information about how to draft your personal narrative. Let's get started.
Writing a Personal Narrative. Episode 4. Writing a Draft. A personal narrative is a true story about your life. You write about something that has happened to you. A draft is the very first version of your story. In your draft, you tell the most important events in the order that they happened. There are a few important things you should write in your draft. First, your draft should include the important things that happened that relate to the main idea of your story. If something is not interesting or important, then you don't need to write it. Your draft should also have transition words. These words help the reader understand the order in which events happened. We also use these words to link our ideas together. Some examples of these words are first, then, next, after, last, and finally. There are many more, too. You should choose ones that make sense and sound the best to you. Your draft should also have details. That means you should use descriptive words and sentences that help the reader imagine your story in their mind. Anyone should be able to read your story and imagine exactly what happened. This also makes your story more interesting and fun to read. Now, I'm going to write my draft. Here's a plan I've already made for my story. I decided I would write about when my mom told me I could get a dog. We went to the store, then we chose our dog, and last we got food and toys for it on our way home. I've already written my opening. It says, "Have you ever felt so happy you could cry? That's how I felt last summer when my mom told me I could get a dog. I had wanted a dog for so long. I couldn't believe I was finally going to get one." Now I'm going to start writing the first page of my draft. First, my mom came to my room to talk to me. She told me since I had gotten good grades at school, I could get a dog. I was so excited, I jumped up in the air. Did you see how I started with the transition word first? This told the reader that this was the very first thing that happened. I decided not to write that I was watching TV when my mom came in the room, because that wasn't a very important part of the story. I also wrote I was so excited I jumped up in the air so the reader could imagine just how I felt when my mom told me. Okay, now I will write my second page. I'm going to start with the transition word then. Then we got in the car to drive to the store. I couldn't wait. I smiled the whole way there. When we pulled up, I saw that the store had a lot of dogs that needed to be adopted. Can you picture in your mind what happened? I hope so. Next page. When we got to the store, I looked at all of the dogs. They were all so cute. All of a sudden, one came up and licked my foot. He was white and fluffy and so adorable. I decided he was the dog for me. Now for my last page. I am going to start with the word finally to tell the reader that this is the last thing that happened. Finally, we put him in the car to take him home. He was wagging his tail and sticking his tongue out. On our way home, we stopped to get him some toys, food, and a collar. That's it. I wrote my story in order. I used transition words to connect all of my ideas. I tried to use details so you could imagine the story in your mind. And since this is just my draft, I can go back later and make it even better. Next, I will write the very last page of my story. Check out episode 5 to see how I write a closing.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed that video to give you a little more information about the middle. So what will we be able to do today? Let's read this together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. We will be able to draft an entertaining middle for their personal narratives using important events, transition words, and details. So you will be able to write the very interesting, entertaining middle using events, transition words, and details. Now, when we think of drafting a middle, we need to have 3 parts. There are 3 important parts for our middle. There are how many parts? There are 3. The first part of our middle is the important events. These are things that we did or things that happened during our celebration. We want to tell the important things. So, for example, at the party, hitting a piñata is an important event. Throwing away trash is not so much. So, we need to really think about what is important to share with our reader and what is not so important to share. That is the first important part. The second is transition words. We need to make sure we're moving the story along and we are keeping the reader on track of what is happening. So transition words are like first, next, then, last, and so forth. Those are all transition words that we need to use in our story. And then finally, we need to add details. We need to make our writing more interesting and keep the reader better and help the reader better imagine what it was like at the celebration. So those are the 3 things that we need to focus on: the important events, transition words, and details. Now, in our writing, I am going to model drafting the middle. Okay, so first I am going to pull up our draft from yesterday. That's where we wrote the beginning. And then I'm going to add the middle. Today, I really want you to focus on the actions that happened. So I really want you to think of action words like jumping, running, opening, bouncing, any of those action words that you did. Okay, so let's get started. All right, friends. So now we are going to move on to the model. Here is what I have so far for my beginning. It says, "Hurry up," I said as I was running downstairs to see what my family and I got for Christmas. Now I'm going to add the middle. This is the details in what happened. So I need to make sure that I use my transition words and I have my action of what I did. So if you remember, this is when I opened up my Christmas present and I got a trip to go to Disney. So I need to talk about all those details, all those events that happened prior. So I'm going to use my first transition word. First, my family and I opened presents from Santa. This is the first action that we did. We were opening the presents. That was my first action. I'm going to use my next transition word. Next, my mom and dad told my siblings. That's like my brothers and sisters and I to open a present from them all together. So that's when we were going to open another present from them. So from my mom and dad, they gave me a present, and so they told me to open it from them. Okay, so I have first, next, and then I'm going to have then. Or actually, okay, hold on. Let's read it so far. First, my family and I opened presents from Santa. Next, my mom and dad told my siblings and I to a present I'm just going to say all together. And I got to say what it was. It was a trip to Disney. Then my family and I ran, that's my action, we were running upstairs to get packed. And then I need to use my last transition word. Last, we woke up the next day, next morning, and headed to Disney. This is my middle. So let me read my full thing so far. So I have my beginning and middle. It says, "Hurry up," I said as I was running upstairs to see what my family and I got for Christmas. First, my family and I opened presents from Santa. Next, my mom and dad told my siblings and I to open a present all together. It was a trip to Disney. Then, my family and I ran upstairs to get packed. Last, we woke up the next morning and headed to Disney. So I went in chronological order. I used my transition words and I gave those very action details. Okay, I told you what we did in each step of the way. Writers, now it's your turn. It is your turn to add to your draft. You already should have your introduction. Now it's time to get to those juicy chunk of your middle. Okay? So I really want you to think, what happened first? What happened next? What happened then? What happened last? Take your time and please reach out if you have any questions. We are here to help. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to reading your draft so far. Bye, friends.